Rodgers is out in New York. I have 5 teams that should consider signing him. Also, some more news about how it ended for him in New York. Matthew Stafford to the Giants. Could the Giants land Stafford? Would that be smart for the Rams? Also, Marcus Stroman drama for the Yankees. Anthony Rendon is already out. All that more coming up next on The Big Lead. What is up, and welcome to The Big Lead. My name is Doug McKain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. Credential member of Dodgers Media. I cover the Rams. I do NFL radio for Westwood One. And as always, I'm joined by my man, Mr. John Robinson IV. We call him J-Rob. He worked for the Players' Choice. Also, D1 college football for UConn, Tennessee State. No one knows ball like this guy. We'll check in with him because we're talking about the Jets, and I'm going to let him build up some frustration and some hate while I build this up. But we got to start with the big lead, and the big lead today is Aaron Rodgers is out in New York. And just a few moments ago, there was some more information that came out about his departure and why the Jets are moving on. And is reported by the New York Post that in his final days as a Jet, Aaron Rodgers was pleading to stay before accepting his fate. It said it was, quote, like a man going to the gallows. So clearly, Aaron Rodgers wanted to stay in New York. He did not want to leave the Jets, but the Jets, they had other plans. And it was very clear that this was not going to work out for New York. It was very clear that time had passed and this organization needed a clean slate. You go out there and you add Aaron Glenn as your new head coach, and there was no doubt about it. They needed a fresh start. And one thing I think is pretty hilarious is the Jets, they go out there and they tweeted a little thank you message to Aaron Rodgers saying, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for what? 5 wins and a new head coach? Thank you for what? I feel like it's the SpongeBob meme. Nothing. What did they really need to thank him for? Because if you get fired from the Jets, you know you're cooked. You know that your career is not going in the right direction. It's almost oddly similar to how Brett Favre's career went. Legendary career, first ballot Hall of Fame career with the Green Bay Packers. Then you go to the New York Jets, and then it doesn't work out there. Thankfully, Aaron Rodgers didn't send any weird pictures of anything. And we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. Does he end up in a better situation where he can prolong his career? Well, Jets owner Woody Johnson, he released a statement about the split with Aaron Rodgers, and he said, quote, I personally want to thank Aaron for his time at the New York Jets. His arrival in 2023 was met with unbridled excitement, and I will forever be grateful that he chose to join us to continue his Hall of Fame career. From day one, he embodied all that it meant to be a New York Jet, embraced our fans and immersed himself in our city. That is what I will remember most when I look back at his time here. He will always be welcome, and I wish him only the best in whatever he chooses to do next. Now, if you look at Aaron Rodgers, if you look at his time with the Jets, he suffered 12 losses, worst of his career. Yards per attempt, 67, 6.7, worst of his career. Pass rating, 90.5, worst of his career. If you look at his other metrics, it tells you that he's not the worst quarterback in the league. He's also not very much better than an above-average quarterback. Now, was this the right move for the Jets? I think 100% it was. Could they win more games in 2025 with Aaron Rodgers? Probably. But first thing, it's a clean slate. Aaron Glenn did not want to join the Jets and have to answer to someone that's going on Pat McAfee's show, that's scheduling vacations during the season, that's becoming a distraction while you're trying to establish a new culture, while you're trying to take this Jets franchise out of the hell they've been in. Because Aaron Rodgers went on that darkness retreat. Hey, first of all, from Aaron Rodgers, I want my refund. But Jets fans have been on a darkness retreat for 30 plus years. And for Aaron Glenn to have to deal with Aaron Rodgers, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. Other thing too, it puts less pressure on his new offensive coordinator. Tanner Engstrand is a bright young football mind. He doesn't need Aaron Rodgers rolling his eyes at him saying it's my way, the highway. I know what I'm doing out here. He doesn't need that. Third thing, Garrett Wilson. A lot of rumors out there that Garrett Wilson was going to request a trade if Aaron Rodgers was going to return. Garrett Wilson, one of the best young wide receivers in the sport. We saw during Hard Knocks that it looked like there was going to be some chemistry there. Then when the season started, it did not go that way. And now with Aaron Rodgers gone, you have to assume that Davante Adams will be gone. So that will put Garrett Wilson back as the number one wide receiver that you can build around. And then lastly, you guys know I love the cap. And the cap is something that the Jets will benefit from. The Jets will have a dead cap hit of $49 million by releasing Aaron Rodgers, but they can spread that money out over 2 seasons if they designate him a post-1 June cut. So the cap hit in 2025 would be $14 million, and it would be $35 million in 2026. They can also take the full $49 million hit in 2025, but it would hurt their chances of adding guys in free agency. But if you're looking at Aaron Glenn as that guy for the future, it's just 1 year. So with Aaron Rodgers gone, you're going to release Adams. That's going to save them $30 million against the cap. And another $6.5 million if they release Allen Lazard, all of Aaron Rodgers' cronies, all of his BFFs, and you basically cleanse yourself from Aaron Rodgers. You basically turn the page and enter a new chapter of Jets football. It's more likely that the Jets are most likely going to spread out the Rodgers dead cap over the next 2 seasons. But with those cuts of Rodgers, Adams, Lazard, that is going to put them in a pretty decent spot when free agency starts on March 10th. So we'll talk about teams where Aaron Rodgers could go, but I got to give the floor to J-Rob because J-Rob has been dealing with the Jets for a long time. He's a true fan, and he probably was excited like a lot of Jets fans were. You saw him run out that American flag, but it just did not go as you had hoped. But what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers being jettisoned from the Jets?
I mean, thank God. That's what I got. Thank God. I mean, listen, I am a lifelong Jets fan. My grandfather was drafted by the Jets. It has been born into me. It is instilled in my heart to be a New York Jet. And listen, we have gone through, like you said, a 30-year darkness retreat with the results that we've had this season. Aaron Rodgers, however, has shown a level of arrogance since coming to New York that has completely toxified our locker room. I mean, you hit it on the nose. The Pat McAfee shows, the going to Costa Rica to get high off hallucinogens instead of being in OTAs with your receivers, the audacity to try to publicly clown Mike Williams when you threw an inerrant pass with the red line, the whole viral image of you and Davante Adams acting like you were going to flip the season around, then ice out Garrett Wilson, who has been here through the dog years. Zach Wilson, and still has been one of the top 10 receivers to me in the game of football. Aaron Rodgers came to New York with this idea that we were almost too good to have him. Like, we should be lucky to have him in a New York Jets uniform. But Doug, outside of those MVPs in that one Super Bowl, he's not a thoroughbred winner. He doesn't have a bunch of NFC championships in his roster. He hasn't been to multiple Super Bowls. This isn't a guy he's had a great statistical career, but I'd argue that if Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen get a Super Bowl and a few more MVPs, they'll have had better careers than him. So it's not like we're looking at a guy, and when we came to New York, it was a guarantee that we would be the number one team in the AFC. But Aaron Rodgers is a victim of his own ego and his own hubris. And the truth of the matter is, good luck to the other 5 teams that are looking to have him, because to me, Doug, you're going to get the same nonsense. A guy who doesn't want to show up, a guy who wants to be in Egypt while there's practices going on, a guy who thinks he's bigger than the program. And listen, I think when you feel like you're the smartest guy in every room you walk into, everybody in that room needs to run away and get away from you, because I just do personally feel like Aaron Rodgers has shown himself to be, I mean, to me, he's what we used to call in football a me guy. He's about himself. I don't think he's about the team. I think he's about himself being comfortable and being able to win while also having his comfort satisfied in that.
Yeah, I still think, look, you're 100% right. It just wasn't the reason why it didn't work out for the Jets was, of course, he had the injury last season. Of course, the team from a talent standpoint, they didn't have elite talent around him. Having said that, you're right. I mean, he needs to go to a place with a established, strong head coach that he can't push around. A organization has a strong infrastructure. He does crave that structure. He does need to get in a situation where his only job is to go out there and be the best quarterback he can be. And he can't manipulate the roster in any way, can't manipulate the system, the play calling. I mean, having said that, I mean, he does have the best passer rating ever of 104.93. I will point out that last season, it's kind of one of those things where Aaron Rodgers at his prime, the guy that won 10, made it to 10 Pro Bowls, won 4 MVPs, had 4 All-Pros, won a Super Bowl with the Packers. That guy was worth the headache. That guy was worth the drama. That guy was worth all of that stuff. But last season, I mean, 3,897 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. You look at that on the nose and you say, that's a pretty decent season. The truth is, though, he only threw for 300 yards once. He finished 26th in expected points added, 30th in air yards per attempt. I mean, even if you're not into advanced stats, basically that tells you he was not an elite quarterback by any stretch. There is the funk of, can anyone win with the Jets, I guess, with the current ownership situation and just where that organization has been? I guess you can say that. Do I think that he's still one of the best 32 quarterbacks on the planet? I do. Do I still think there are situations out there where a team could make a playoff run with him? It's definitely possible. Now, who are those teams? And look, there's no guarantee he's going to continue his career. I think the interesting thing that he said was when his career ends, he's going to go out like Kaiser Soze in The Usual Suspects, and you're not going to hear from or see from him, right? He's not signing that big television deal like Tom Brady did. He's not going to be an analyst. I mean, who knows, though? Maybe he does pursue his true passion in life, and that is being Pat McAfee's co-host. I mean, who knows? But if he does want to continue his career, I got 5 teams, and we'll start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, what the Pittsburgh Steelers have going for them is that is a Mike Tomlin run organization. And this is not a conversation about whether Mike Tomlin's overrated as a head coach, if he relies too much on those Super Bowls he won early on in his career. The Rooney family, they're a trusted organization, a family that knows what they're doing. The Steelers are one of the biggest brands in the sport. You can't go into Pittsburgh and push them around. They had an experience this year with an eccentric quarterback. There was a former all-pro level player that has a history of kind of ruffling teammates' feathers and this and that. And it proved that, yeah, it didn't work out as far as the team's success in the long term. But Russell Wilson did have his moments for a couple of stretches there, and he did not destroy their culture. And the other thing, too, is you look at where the Pittsburgh Steelers are at. They want to stay flexible for 2026. So if you want to sign Justin Fields to a contract extension, a multi-year deal to bring him back, I don't think that's what they're going to do. Wilson, they're not going to bring him back. He struggled down the stretch. The Steelers lost each of the last 5 games with Russell Wilson as their quarterback. If you test drove that and still want to drive it off the lot, then you're buying a lemon, okay? That's not a good deal on your end. You didn't score more than 17 points in any of those games. So could Aaron Rodgers be better than Russell Wilson was for the Steelers last season? I think he possibly could. So the Steelers are one team. I'm going to save the team that I think he ends up signing with for to the end, but let's keep going down the list. Tennessee Titans, they own the number 1 pick. And here's the thing, even if the Titans go out there and draft Cam Ward, draft Jador Sanders, you don't want to plug those guys in to that roster as your starter in year 1. You just don't want to put them into that situation. And even if you do ultimately, like we saw with Michael Penix Jr. getting burned late in the season, you still want to have that bridge quarterback. And I think the number 1 question there, if I'm the Titans, is if you do meet with Aaron Rodgers, is he willing to embrace his role as a mentor type of quarterback that can take those guys under his wing? By the way it sounds from guys like Garrett Wilson and guys like that, it doesn't feel like he wants any part of that as far as a mentorship role. But with the Titans, I mean, you had Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. You need a quarterback for Brian Callahan's team. So the Titans are an option. 49ers are interesting to me. San Francisco is an extremely interesting option to me. He's a California dude, a West Coast dude. He went to Cal Berkeley. And the big question with the 49ers is Brock Purdy your guy? Do you really make Mr. Irrelevant a quarterback that signs a contract that gets him a $55 million annual salary? Is Brock Purdy truly that guy for you? Because if I'm the 49ers and I saw what happened last year, I'm scared about my championship window. It looked like they were going to win that division, be right back in the mix to compete for a Super Bowl, and things just did not go their way. And Aaron Rodgers, if you give him weapons like Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel has a $15.8 million cap hit. He requested trade this offseason. That could give the 49ers some extra financial stability so you could add even another piece around him. So a re-energized coming home, a homecoming to the Bay Area, that's interesting to me. The New Orleans Saints is another team. The Saints, basically zero cap space to work with, man. That black card has been maxed out, man. Everything, they have no credit. The Klarna, everything is just, they got nothing. And they enter the offseason with $54 million above the cap. And you got Derek Carr, who has a $51.45 million cap in 25. It's even bigger in 26 at over $61 million. You could save $30 million by releasing Carr with that post-June 1st designation, and then you'd be on the books for $21 million in dead cap in 25, another $28 million in 2026. So if you trade him post-June 1st, which would take some maneuvering, you could save $40 million. So imagine that. Get out from underneath the quarterback that's taking you nowhere, and then you get a quarterback with Kellen Moore in the Saints that is an offensive weapon. That's interesting too. Still have some weapons in New Orleans. Then the team that I think he ends up with is the Raiders. The Raiders are the team that is ran by Tom Brady, that is always looking for that next guy, so to speak. And they have a tandem of Gardner Minshew and Aiden McConnell. They were bad. They weren't good enough. And what Aaron Rodgers could bring them is another bridge type guy. And they have a ton of cap space. The Raiders have $85 million in cap space. That's the second most in the National Football League. And even if they're waiting on their quarterback, I don't think the Raiders think their quarterback is in this draft. I think that they probably view their quarterback in the 2026 draft when it's a much deeper quarterback draft class. So would Aaron Rodgers disrespect Pete Carroll? They kind of feel like West Coast guys. They've won Super Bowls. They've had success. I mean, they had history in the Pac-12 when Pete Carroll was at USC and Aaron Rodgers was at Cal. I think he ends up with the Las Vegas Raiders. And look, like I said, Las Vegas is the town, man. You have a great career. You end up in Las Vegas. And I'm not saying he's going to have success, but I think the Raiders make the most sense as far as a guy that kind of gets him. I mean, Browns, Titans, Giants, Vikings, Raiders, Saints. I mean, he just looks like you don't even need a jersey swap. It just feels like you can just visualize him in a Raiders jersey. But of those teams, J-Rob, which team do you like for Aaron Rodgers?
The retirement home.
The retirement home.
That's the team. That's the team that Aaron Rodgers needs to send himself to, retirement. You go to the Raiders, it sounds good. Listen, Tennessee, the Raiders, those probably sound the two best. I think the most ideal would be the Steelers if he wants a chance to potentially compete for a championship. I think the Steelers would be the best option. Good foundation with obviously with Mike Tomlin. You have a good defense. You have a young budding receiver in George Pickens. I do like Jalen Warren. There are that offensive line does need to be upgraded massively. If you're going to bring Aaron Rodgers in with that bad offensive line in Pittsburgh, then it's just going to be Jets Part 2. However, Doug, I just don't think Aaron Rodgers is a winning football player anymore. That's just truly where I'm at with it. I think when you get to an age of 42 years old, he's not Tom Brady at 42. Tom Brady at 42 was still out there in the summertime, sweating, bleeding with his teammates to make sure they were in the best position to win. He's not, to me, he doesn't seem as obsessed over it like a Tom Brady who can play up into that age. When I look at Aaron Rodgers, I see somebody who's past his prime, who nobody has told him yet that he is past his prime. And the reality of it for me is when I look at Aaron Rodgers, I just see a shell of that guy that was in Green Bay. And I think you can use it as a bridge for a lot of these teams to bring in a new young guy. But knowing Aaron Rodgers, Doug, if you let's just say the Raiders do bring him in, and then we hear with the 6th pick of the draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Shedeur Sanders. With the history and things we know of Aaron Rodgers, is he going to help a guy like that get ready for the next role? Or is he going to look at like, this is my job and I'm here now and I'm the franchise guy? I just don't know when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. There's been a lot of red flags for me. I think the best thing for him to do is not tarnish his legacy trying to chase these ghostly championships, but sit down. You're already a first ballot Hall of Famer. You're sitting on a bunch of MVPs. You got your token trophy Super Bowl trophy. And so you can go off into the sunset. Be that guy that doesn't want to be heard from anymore, even though I doubt that too. He'll probably be on Pat McAfee for a decade, but we'll see what happens. Sorry I'm so harsh, man.
It's understandable because you're a Jets fan, and I totally get it. I mean, you've been burned by this guy, and I totally understand.
Like this since he was in Green Bay, man.
But the truth, I mean, like, his QBR was better than Dak Prescott's last year. I mean, the truth of the matter is, for as bad as it was, you had to consider situation. The Jets have been a dumpster fire of an organization for the better half of the last 15, 20 years. So I just think that, look, as bad as Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he wasn't even bad. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great, though. He was really
average.
He was average. And the truth of the matter is an average quarterback. You can still, I mean, would you take him over Kirk Cousins? Yes. Would you take him over Russell Wilson? Yes. Would you take him over Daniel Jones?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's pretty bad, for being honest. But
he's not
Will
better than
Levis,
Dak Prescott right now.
Cooper Rush, Gardner Minshew.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just there's a lot of I do think it's situation, and we thought that Baker Mayfield was done, right? We thought Brett Favre was done. He's on the Jets, and he ended up having 2 good years. Perfect example. Sam Darnold, obviously, some of these guys are younger than others, but I do think it really, at the bottom line, what it boils down to is how much he's willing to accept the fact that he's not going to get many more opportunities. His next team is most likely going to be the team that he retires with, and that it is kind of one of those things where if everyone else stinks, you're probably the one that stinks, and he has to kind of understand that. So the most important thing is going to a strong organization. And like we said, my thing with the Raiders is last year with the Raiders, I would say no. This year with the Raiders, Pete Carroll's a guy that has equity. He has that gravitas. He's a Super Bowl winning head coach that I think that he would respect. But those are my 5 teams. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers, man, just the enigma that is Aaron Rodgers. Okay, so we're going to do some quick hitter questions for the NFL offseason. And my first big one is, can a contender land Myles Garrett? Because when I watched that Super Bowl and I saw that defensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles get 6 sacks, 10 QB hits without blitzing once, and that was Patrick Mahomes' kryptonite. If I'm a team out there, I'm looking at Myles Garrett and saying, how can we get the best in the game on our team? Because clearly that is where the league is shifting. If you have great offense, if you have an elite quarterback, you better have an elite offensive line to be able to neutralize a great pass rush. And Myles Garrett is that man. And part of this is because I don't love, there's 2 things I hate most in sports. The 2 things I hate most: injuries, and 2, when elite players are on dumpster fire franchises. When Shohei was on the Angels, Mike Trout on the Angels, when you are the Bugatti at the trailer park meme, I hate that. That's what Myles Garrett is in Cleveland. He's the Bugatti at the trailer park meme. And the number 1 team, if I could pick any team for him to go to, it would be the Buffalo Bills. If the Buffalo Bills, we talked about it, how Josh Allen did not have the same supporting cast that Lamar Jackson has in Baltimore, that Jalen Hurts has in Philly. To add an all-pro, incredibly elite player like that would change the game. Would absolutely change the game. In Buffalo and the Browns, they've done deals in the past. Amari Cooper went there last season, and just imagine that. I mean, he led the league in quarterback pressures, pass rush win rate. I mean, he could be the missing piece for Buffalo. But Myles Garrett, any teams come to mind for you?
Oh, the Detroit Lions.
The Lions.
I feel like if I am Myles Garrett, I'm trying to stay away from that AFC. I feel like if I'm a player that's looking to go to a new team and going to a contender, I'm staying out that NFC, man. That AFC is ridiculous. I'll be looking at the Lions, and I will be looking at, honestly, the Washington Commanders. Because how many more years at an elite level does Myles Garrett have? I'm going to say at least 4 to 6 elite years left. And so if you're going to maximize that time, I think you're going to go on a team where you know the quarterback situation is stable enough to lead you into that 5-year window that you have. I believe the Bills is a good pick because you have that window. But the Commanders, I mean, listen, you add Myles Garrett to that Commanders team, knowing what we know about what their offense is going to be, oh, man, I think it's a match made in heaven. I think with Bobby Wagner and Myles Garrett as veterans on that defense, it gets me excited to think about. And then I like the Lions because you just don't know what Hutchinson is going to look back off the broken leg. And that was a defense that, listen, if Aaron Glenn wasn't a mad genius with that defense, it could have really been, they really might have not have made it as far on their playoff run as they did. I think they could have easily bottomed out because of the defensive injuries that they dealt with this past season. You get Myles Garrett into that mix, oh, man, it is look out in Detroit. So those are my two teams that I think he should be considering.
Totally agree. Those are teams that should absolutely be on the phone if they truly shop and make him available. Now, next one is who's going to be the number one pick? Who is going to be the number one pick in this draft? There have been multiple reports that Tennessee could consider trading down. You see mocks that have them taking Cam Ward, Travis Hunter. We know how talented he is. You got Abdul Carter. I mean, he comes from the same college as Micah Parsons. Wears the same number. What is the celebration? The 11. The 11. Yeah. I mean, he's incredibly talented. Jador Sanders feels like the stock for him has kind of drifted off of number one pick, but it's still top 5 range.
Yeah.
It feels, I mean, man, I got a little Cam Ward rabbit hole last night. I mean, I just like seeing the U, like the helmets, the orange, the green. I mean, you got the starter jacket right here. I've always been kind of obsessed with the U. So
this in for a reason.
that is such a, honestly, J-Rob, that's a fire jacket, dude. Like straight up, I might have to just like, man, that is ridiculous. I mean, so about the U, right? So I think it still ends up being Cam Ward as the top pick.
Yeah, so actually, you're going to say this is the crazy Jets fan in me, but I think the Jets are going to put together a package to trade up for a quarterback because that's, to me, the only reason why they would get rid of Aaron Rodgers without a solution at the position, or is to bring back Sam Darnold. I think the Titans will be willing to trade down because there's going to be there's a lot of good players, positional players in this draft. I think you can still trade down and potentially get a quarterback if that's what you're looking for. Because, I mean, if you're interested in Jackson Dart and you're the Titans, you can get him with that pick that the Jets have if you swap it. But I do think the Jets are going to put together a package to go get Cam Ward. I can see this being one of those type of moves where the Titans are going to take the best offer possible, and the Jets being so desperate to rebuild, restart, really get that fresh, clean slate with a legitimate, proven quarterback in college. I think you're going to give up a first-round pick next year. You're going to give up a player or two, but I do think the Jets are primed to try to trade up. I think maybe even the Raiders might try to trade up and move the Titans out of that pick.
Interesting. That's
For
interesting
Cam Ward,
stuff.
though, my number one pick is Cam Ward.
Yeah, I think talent-wise, he's the guy. No doubt about it. I think what Jador has over him, it's tough to earn at a combine, right? Because he's got the intangibles, the way he plays the game, the way he's ice and nails. He's got ice in his veins when it's a pressure situation. But when it comes to just arm talent, the Cam Ward, he's really the guy in this year's class. Now, next big question. Will the Vikings really let Sam Darnold go? Will the Vikings let him walk? And it's so interesting because it feels like he's been in the league for like 40 years. He's just 27. They have $58 million in cap space. They could give him a 1-year tag. It's expensive, $41.3 million on that franchise tag. But it would be, I think, a very intelligent move by the Vikings because there's no guarantees with any of these quarterbacks. J.J. McCarthy's very young. He really didn't get that many opportunities to lead that offense at Michigan, even though there were so many scouts that had him as their number one guy as far as the overall potential in last year's draft. But I think Sam Darnold, on the surface, a team that wins that many games, and you let him walk. And yes, he started looking like Sam Darnold towards the end of the season. Cinderella kind of turned to a pumpkin. But for a Vikings franchise that's kind of lacked some quarterback stability, and you let Cousins leaves, and you just haven't really had that guy for that many years, it just feels like a move that they really should make, honestly.
Bringing back Sam.
Bringing back on the franchise tag.
I had the opportunity to talk to Sam. I'm actually a big fan of Sam Darnold now, having spoken to him at the Pro Bowl. Very good.
Oh, it's
guy.
Always like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I spoke
you talk to a guy once, you can go like, you're the worst player now, like, well, go to bat for you.
You could tell that like he's worked really hard to get to this point in his career throughout all the scrutiny, and has so much humility that I would even be fine with him coming back to New York and trying a redemption arc. However, I feel you, Doug, but you drafted this kid to be your franchise quarterback. And somebody else might give Sam Darnold the contract that he's probably looking for. I think if I'm the Vikings, we do right by Sam, let him go into the market, get that massive contract, and then do right by this kid that we drafted, that we have to see what is he capable of. Now, I do have my skepticism about J.J. McCarthy because I do think he didn't throw the ball too much at Michigan. A lot of skills, a lot of intangible things that you like, but I just don't know 100%. Can he win games with his arm? We're going to find out. But I think for everybody involved mentally, I think you let Sam go find and be a franchise quarterback somewhere else, and you got to elevate JJ. I just don't think Kevin O'Connell thought that when he brought in Sam, this was the production that he was going to get or the season he was going to get.
Exactly. It's a good problem to have, honestly, because they had a surprise season for sure. But yeah, it really comes down to the confidence level they have in JJ McCarthy being that guy. Now, we're going to switch gears to Matthew Stafford because there's a wild rumor. There was a wild trade rumor that a trade proposal that Colin Cowherd made on the Herd. And look, Colin Cowherd, man, I grew up listening to all these guys, Jim Rome, Colin Cowherd, Dan Patrick. And a lot of times my relationship with Colin Cowherd was driving the car and like he'd say something and no one be in my car, but I'm yelling at him. I'm walking around my headphones, I'm yelling at him. It's like we're basically arguing all day. So like, I love the guy, absolutely 10 out of 10 love him, but like I disagree with like most, if not all, like probably like I disagree with probably like 45% of things he says. That's right?
Stephen A.
Yeah. So like it's cool. It's like I need that. It's like he's like the co-host in your mind, so you can go debate with. He has a really, really wild trade proposal for Matthew Stafford. Now, this is what he had to say about Stafford and the Giants potentially making a run at him. He said, what the Rams want, I am told they want the Giants' first-round pick at number 3, so they probably want a first, a second, a first, a third, but they've got to pay Stafford if you're the Giants. You have to give him a new deal. They'll probably get a first and a fourth, but let's talk about that number 3 pick. The Rams want the number 3 pick in the draft because they're drafting way later. They want to get that pick, move down, and get more picks. Why? So they have extra picks next year when they have to move up to get a quarterback. Now, my response to this is I think the Giants would be out of their minds to give up a number 3 pick for 37-year-old Matthew Stafford. Stafford is a really good quarterback. When he's at his best, he still has a top 5 to 10 arm in the sport. Truth of the matter is, since he signed that contract extension, he's been middle of the pack in most metrics they use to evaluate a quarterback. For example, I mean, he's 19th in QBR since he signed that extension in 22. Now, it does make sense to stockpile picks. I will say that. That does make sense. If you're the Rams and you want to stockpile picks in 2026, that makes sense because that's when you'll want to draft your quarterback if you don't like the guys in this year's class. I think the Rams, they would like to get another receiver or a tight end. I look at Colston Loveland out of Michigan as a guy that can stretch the field. They really wanted Brock Bowers. They were close to trading up for Bowers last draft. They didn't get him. There were talks that they were rumored to trade up for Rome Odunze. They didn't get him. So the Rams clearly want one of those guys. So would the Giants really want Matthew Stafford when are you truly just a Matthew Stafford away from having a Super Bowl run? This is a guy that you could trade for, extend, and then he retires. So I don't love that deal for the Giants, if I'm being completely honest.
I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. I think it makes sense to me. When I look at that division, Matthew Stafford mixed in with Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, and Jaden Daniels, I think he can compete in that division. The Giants have been so bad quarterback play-wise that anybody who comes in that has any type of competence at the position significantly makes them better offensively. You got Malik Neighbors out there. I think Robinson is decent. I really do like Jalen Hyatt, too. I think they have weapons in New York City. I do feel like if I am the head coach, I got to make the call because am I guaranteed to get a quarterback in this draft if somebody shakes up the draft? So if that's the case, I mean, Matthew Stafford, they almost went to the NFC Championship this year. he kind of was balling late into the year. So he still got some juice left in him. Now, if the Giants see it as the Jets situation and don't want to have deja vu in New York all over again, I can see them deciding to pull out of a deal like that. But for Brian Daboll, I mean, he might be kind of desperate.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct in the sense that it would be an improvement and the weapons around him make it enticing. If I'm the Rams and you could get the number 3 pick for Matthew Stafford, and look, I think for me, I go back and forth, and I'm a big Stafford guy, of course, because he won a Super Bowl for the Rams, and it makes a lot of sense because just Super Bowl winning quarterbacks don't grow on trees.
Right.
But the truth is, the fact that they were close last couple of seasons, I don't necessarily means you're so close. Hey, we're a couple pieces away. It could be like, okay, you've maxed out a little bit. I mean, they were 14 yards away from hosting an NFC Championship game against a rookie quarterback, right? In a snowstorm. I mean, if Bo Limmer doesn't get blown up there, then maybe they win that game, right? So you got to give credit to the Eagles for that. But still, if you're the Rams and you're thinking long term, you have this established young defense with a lot of pieces you found. Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Jared Verse led the league in pressures last season, won Defensive Rookie of the Year, right? If you could get your premier receiver and have those picks for next season. So let's say they got the number 3 pick, they traded down, and they drafted Tedero McMillan. If they got T-Mac out of Arizona, just think about that. Just think about that. And you get your elite wide receiver. It'd be pretty amazing.
Yeah, it would be sweet, man. Like, listen, I feel like we're in like this weird crossroad with the quarterback carousel right now, because I think everybody's trying to compete with like 3 guys at the top. And so you're trying to find a way to bridge these gaps. I mean, listen, the Rams are flashy, man. I figure no matter what, Sean McVay and that front office, they have a plan. And I'm not willing to say, Doug, that plan is not going to work, just because they've kind of worked. They worked a miracle this year. They worked a legitimate miracle.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, the way that his contract was restructured was to take all the money for the 2025 and 26 seasons and move them, front load that. So he'd basically be on a 1-year, $40 million deal with the lack of guaranteed money in the future. So the Rams put themselves in a position where if they want to go in a different direction, they can. Matthew Stafford, if he doesn't get the kind of extension he wants with the Rams, they can find a path to use him to get some assets. And I think that it is one of those things. The Rams are a very interesting organization in this. You took Jared Goff with the number 1 pick in the 2016 draft. By the way, they've had 2 first-round picks in the last 10 years. Both of them have been named Jared. If you want to be drafted by the Rams in the first round, you better be named Jared.
Yep.
But they even knew a guy like that who was successful, who had taken them deep into the playoffs, who had taken them to the Super Bowl. They knew when to punt on him and when to upgrade to get Matthew Stafford to ultimately get them over the top. So this is a Rams organization that has shown a willingness to move off of established starting quarterbacks a year or 2 earlier to get themselves over the hump later. So if Sean McVay, who, by the way, I think Sean McVay, if you're going to start an NFL franchise, Sean McVay is certainly in the conversation as far as a culture builder, star. How do you see him flexing, by the way?
He's the one.
Do you see him flexing
I'm a fan.
He was wearing a Super Bowl 56. He had a 3-piece suit on.
I'm a big Sean McVay fan. I love what he does, man.
No, he's that man. So maybe,
that guy.
So maybe if he truly is saying, hey, look, I was going to retire. I got the big contract off from Amazon. I didn't accept it. Maybe I am really a head coaching lifer. Maybe I am really going to be here for the next 5, 10, 15 years. And he sees where the game is going. Look at the league. Jalen Hurts, mobile. Patrick Mahomes, mobile. Josh Allen, mobile. Lamar Jackson, mobile. The league is trending towards mobile quarterbacks. You have you limit your offense to a degree. And no matter how great your arm is, you do limit the evolution of your offense to a degree if
you can't move.
You can't move. So if I am like, this is kind of one of those things where it might feel like a step back for sure. And the ultimate question, the number one thing the Rams have to ask themselves is this. This is the number one question they have to ask themselves. Do you think you can win a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford in 2025? If the answer is yes, if you've watched all the tape, looked at all the analytics, looked in your heart and believe that's the case, then bring him back. Right. If you have doubts about that, though, you're not going to get any more from him later than you could get from him now, and you wouldn't have to commit to a new contract, and then you can set up the future. And maybe Colin Cowherd has the Rams as a potential destination for Aaron Rodgers. I look at a guy like Justin Fields, right? I mean, someone like that. You could start a mobile type thing. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo as your Band-Aid quarterback, as your stopgap quarterback. But the truth is, I'm not saying that's a winning move or anything like that, but the Rams have always realized that you have to have elite players at the positions that matter. You need to get elite corner. You got Jalen Ramsey. Yep. You're right. You got Von Miller. There's certain positions they don't value. The positions, I mean, running back, right? They gave the Todd Gurley contract. The Rams might never, ever sign a running back again, like to a big contract. Yeah. That's it, right? And I like Whitworth, the left tackle they traded for, and the last time they had Orlando Pace, right? Mm-hmm. They know you got to have a left tackle, elite quarterback, and that's kind of the recipe for a Super Bowl. So the more I kind of think about it, this Rams organization is not afraid to be bold. If the Giants want to go crazy and seriously consider that number 3 pick, at the very least, you got to think about it. You think long and hard about it, for sure. But we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about the New York Yankees and Marcus Stroman. Marcus Stroman, the professional bridge burner of the New York Yankees, is kind of at it again. And here's what he had to say to reporters about, and by the way, if you're doing a drinking game at home, take a sip every time Marcus Stroman mentions that he has that he's a starting pitcher. Okay, so we don't have the clip, but we will get to, so what he did say, what Marcus Stroman did say was that he basically is a starting pitcher. He's a starting pitcher. He said, he said, quote, "I'm a starter. I won't pitch in the bullpen." And he said it 11 times. 11 times in a 10-minute interview session with reporters. He said, "I am a starter." Now, a little rewind, Marcus Stroman, he signed a 2-year, $37 million deal with the Yankees last season. And he got to a really nice start at 2.60 ERA in his first 12 starts. Then when the summer rolled around, weather heated up and he cooled down. He ended up with a 5.7 ERA throughout the rest of the summer months. And he ended up finishing with a 4.31 ERA in 154 and 2/3 innings, which isn't bad. It definitely isn't. But he really, really got pounded by lefties. Lefties really struggled, really dominated him, especially at Yankee Stadium. Lefties hit 296 off of him. They had 15 home runs against him. He gave 19 home runs last year. 15 were hit at Yankee Stadium against lefties. So it's not a great situation. The Yankees were interested in possibly trading him this offseason, but it does feel like Marcus Stroman is in another tough situation. He would also say, "I don't think there was a need for me to be here the last few days, given the climate. I've talked to Aaron Boone. We had a great conversation. Everything, honestly, is perfect and seamless. My relationship with the guys in the clubhouse hasn't changed. I feel great to be back, and I'm ready to roll. I know I can compete at any level with any team. If I'm here, if I'm not here, my body's ready to roll. I'm ready to go out there and give 30-plus starts. I just felt like today was a good day to come, Valentine's Day. Feel like the vibes are going to be proper. Everyone's happy on this day." He doesn't sound happy. And Yankees fans, I do think being in the business of baseball media, sometimes it's dry when spring training starts and you're looking for stories. And you know Marcus Stroman's history, you might be clinging on to a story that might not be there, but you're kind of leaning into it. Truth is, with Marcus Stroman, I think he's a little frustrated. He's frustrated that he's not being prioritized by the Yankees. They went out there and they added Max Fried. You added some pieces to your bullpen as well. And the truth is, I mean, the velocity has gone down on the sinker the last couple of years. Lost 2 miles per hour on that sinker. Spin rate has dropped. The sinker hasn't been as effective, and that's his money pitch. I think the best situation for him is outside of New York, because he can still help guys. He really can. I mean, he's had 22 WAR in his career, and he's earned over $100 million. So dude got paid. But I think this is, look, I was ready to come on here and blast Marcus Stroman for being some clubhouse cancer, some guy that starts drama. What the hell is he supposed to say? I want to go to the bullpen. What? These guys are like that for a reason. Every one of these guys is here because they're delusional. and they're delusional in the best way possible. If these guys looked at the statistics of how getting to the league, signing a second contract, being a starter, it'd be very discouraging. All these guys think they are the man. So this, to me, it doesn't mean anything to me. I think that Marcus Stroman maybe could communicate it with a little less tension, but I kind of like it, man. You need some dog in these dudes. And, for a lot of baseball players, man, a lot of them don't say much. I like that a guy is giving us something at this part of the season. But this is your Yankees, J-Rob. What do you think about Marcus Stroman?
I mean, I love it. I mean, believe who you are and what you think you can be. I'm all for it. I'm actually a Marcus Stroman fan. I was actually pretty devastated to see him go towards the middle of the season last year. But I like this attitude. Listen, 5-0. That's what needs to be in that Yankees locker room. 5-0.
Yeah.
That's what needs to be all over the locker room. And you need somebody in that locker room who's an absolute dog. You need a Patrick Beverly. You need a Draymond Green. You need somebody who's going to make people a little bit uncomfortable to get the greatest things out of them. And so I'm a fan of Marcus Stroman. I want him with the stripes. I don't really want him on another team. I think with him, Fried, I think we have a lot of pieces by adding him into that mix, at least from a pitching standpoint, that I'd feel more confident than I was a season ago. Especially with Cole too. Like I think we'll be okay. And I like his attitude. Like you need to be delusional to perform at the highest level.
Hey, you know me. I'd rather be great player on crap team than on great team, but like role player. Yeah. That's why I want to get paid. I want all the starts. Yeah. I want you guys to come see me, right? Like I don't think I would want to be in a rotation that had Garrett Cole, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Luis Gil, Clark Schmidt, more. You know what I mean? Hey man, like you guys go out there and be elite and be stars, and I'll go over here. I mean, where the Marlins at? You know what I mean? Let me be the opening day starter for the Marlins, or a team like that. Of course. I mean, I think if you're Marcus Stroman, the attitude has been a gift and a curse for you, if we're being frank.
True.
But it's kind of one of those things where I want to reiterate to anyone that's watching this that wants to turn the other page on a pitcher. Let's not forget, half this league is getting injured every season.
Facts.
That takes the mound. Okay? If you are a healthy starting pitcher in Major League Baseball, you have leverage. There's a place for you in this league. Marcus Stroman, couple years ago with the Cubs, he was really excellent for most of the season. He has proven through parts of his career he can be a dependable starter. So as long as he's healthy and relatively effective, there is going to be a spot for you in this league. And look, it's tough. I mean, going from the Yankees to another team, and also look, I mean, the fact that this team is kind of looking to trade you can't feel good either. It's a business, though. It's a business. And by the way, this guy is one of the more active players on Twitter. One of the more active players on Twitter that I respect. He's almost like the Kevin Durant of Major League Baseball when it comes to being active on Twitter. But we'll see what happens with Marcus Stroman. I think, like I said, that Yankees starting rotation, By the way, Garrett Cole got absolutely destroyed by like a minor league catcher yesterday. But it's spring training. I mean, the UCLA great Garrett Cole will be just fine. But last story we're going to end on today, sticking with baseball. Anthony Rendon looks to be Anthony Rendon once again. Anthony Rendon is having hip surgery, could miss most of the 2025 season. And Anthony Rendon didn't even make it to pitchers and catchers reporting, and he's already most likely out for the season. This is some of his most impressive work in Anaheim. I think Anthony Rendon is more of a concept at this point. Like he's more of a theory at this point. And I almost think of him as like a really expensive player that gets demoted to the IL. Something like that. I mean, the biggest memory of Anthony Rendon is when he swiped at a fan in a spring training game, at an A's game, and he grabbed the A's fan's shirt. I mean, that's pretty much the most memorable moment. And he swung and missed. It was basically his career in Anaheim. And his most recent setback, I think, is going to solidify his contract as the worst contract in professional baseball history. Strasburg was right there. Strasburg, when you look at the contract and the fact that he pitched 30 innings, signed for over $200 million. But Anthony Rendon signed a 7-year, $245 million contract. 7 years. And they've got essentially nothing out of him. Nothing. He's missed 68.3% of Angels games since he signed that deal. 68.3% of games. His OPS with the Nationals, when he won a World Series, the market was robust for him. The Dodgers, who dodged a major bullet by not signing him because he did not want that Hollywood lifestyle, as he put it. He had 859 OPS. With the Angels, it's 717, below average. He would also go on to say things like, it's never been a top priority for me, baseball. This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith, my family come before this job. Really? He also would go on to say that baseball should have less games per season. Yeah, I think Angels fans wish your contract had less years and less money, because you have stolen money from this organization. You've averaged 51 games per season in your last 5. Think about how ridiculous this is. His last 5 seasons, he's averaged 4 home runs. 4 home runs. He's played 257 games in 6 years of his contract, of a 7-year deal. This is the worst contract in the history of Major League Baseball, and it's not even close. Anthony Rendon is an absolute fraud. I almost think that he knew that spring training was coming and he just threw himself down the stairs. I'm pretty sure that he might have, that's messed up. This is like towards the end of the show, right? No one's probably watching, but yeah, I mean, like at this point, it's just, yeah, Anthony Rendon. I mean, he's almost Major League Baseball Deshaun Watson in a way. I mean, it's just, he's going to be in that conversation. But at the same token, man, dude, he's still paid. Think about this, like, as bad as it's been for him with the Angels, he's a World Series champion. He's wealthy, never has to work a day in his life, living in California. So I don't necessarily feel bad for the guy, I'll tell you that much.
I give you one name whose contract might be worse than Rendon's. One name. Can we go Steven Strasburg with the Nationals?
That's what I said. Strasburg is the thing about Strasburg was the contract was for sure bad. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. And it just, but Strasburg was definitely the guy before this. And the difference between Strasburg and Rendon was on that team that would go on to win that World Series in 2019, but it was all injury related too. And the thing about Strasburg, it was almost sad more than anything. Yeah, it truly was. It was sad the way things played out. He signed a 7-year, $245 million deal, and he ended up retiring. He pitched man, think about this, bro. Strasburg, he made 8 starts. Yeah. 8. I mean, I got to crunch the numbers and do the math. What is it, like, how many millions is that per start, dude? Like, that's crazy.
It's expensive.
31 in the third innings. But it's kind of cool. Here's one of those things, like, he was the biggest reason why the Nationals won the 2019 World Series. And I can guarantee you this. Covering the Dodgers, not saying that they didn't have to pay him, obviously, but it's kind of one of those things where, like, Stafford, right? They win a Super Bowl, extension. Yeah. Cooper Cup. Yep. It's the worst thing that organizations do. It's the dumbest thing that organizations do. Why the hell would I reward you for something that you already did for me, right? I'm paying you for what I think you're going to do for me. Why not what you done for me?
Why do we have to give the lifetime deal, though? Like, why do we have to give you the 10-year extension, the 9-year extension? That's what my question is. Like, well, you can extend a guy, but why do we give them so many years? Doug, I'm going to give you 4 other names. Javier Baez, Chris Bryant, and then obviously Rendon and Strasburg. And I'd even throw in Xander Bogaerts to that mix. They're going to cause a lockout in Major League Baseball. I want you to be prepared. When that new collective bargaining agreement comes, there is going to be a lockout in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, the Xander Bogaerts one is that's it. You know, now you think about Xander though. Like, I mean, Xander's an 11-year, $280 million deal. Think about Xander Bogaerts though. Is like, I mean, that was a unique situation where Peter Seidler, who has since passed, the owner of the San Diego Padres, he signed that deal because My man knew he was sick. He knew he was ill, and he wanted to try to win a World Series and was trying to acquire as much talent as he could. And Xander Bogaerts, I mean, he was above average last 2 years ago, slightly below last year. But here's the difference. Xander Bogaerts has played 155 games year one, 111 in year two.
Facts.
Rendon has played 257 games in 6 years. My man is the worst contract ever, worst attitude ever, hates baseball. Like, there's players that hate baseball.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
That he's one of them. I mean, this is PTO for him, bro. This is paid time off.
Like, a little bit, in your opinion, like, do you know? Because I mean, a lot of people question
very Ben Simmons-ish. Ben Simmons-ish.
For the game, for the sport.
Yeah, Ben Simmons hates basketball too. But no, my favorite thing is, what is it, Noel? You know, the summers here when you got the Ben Simmons working out in New York, shooting threes. Yeah, that's how you know summer is here. But yeah, Anthony Renton. Hey man, at least he didn't wait till spring training. But that's gonna do it for this episode of The Big Lead. If you're new to the channel, guys, it's going to be a party all year long, man. We're breaking down the biggest stories in sports, the hottest stories in sports. So make sure you guys are locked in. Someone says Chris Taylor, BC. I don't know what Chris Taylor ever did to BC, man. I don't know. You take your girl out once, or I mean, BC hates Chris Taylor, but I respect the hate. I respect the hate. And as a guy who gets up extra early to have extra time to hate in the day, I respect that. But that's going to do it, guys. Like I said, subscribe to The Big Lead 1. Hit the notification bell. Hit the like button. Drop your comments down below. Lots of exciting things on the way. Interviews, giveaways, all kinds of awesome stuff. We're giving away a new Dodgers jersey. So comment Rookie of the Year. My name is Doug McKain. Follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And until next time, I'm out.